Hey guys, welcome back to Podcast of the Day. And this week we have Liam Holmes with us. If you haven't come across Liam, he is from PH Nutrition, who you will see is partnered recently with JST and other programmers are available. And you work quite a lot out of WIT, I think that's right. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Give us a little sense of what you're all about.
Oh, okay. Really quick overview. So I'm a performance nutritionist. I'm PH Nutrition. It's myself with a number of other coaches that are based in predominantly CrossFit gyms. We do work with other people. It's not just CrossFit, but we basically help people to navigate the confusing world of nutrition, try and simplify things, and help people to lose fat, train better, gain muscle, general health and well-being as well. So yeah, hopefully we can dive into a few things to help the listeners, like you say, cut through maybe the nonsense that they maybe found on the internet or heard about, and giving us some actionable things to take on.
Exactly. So when you've got a concept like nutrition, which is just vast, where do we start? Shall we do like the common mistakes people make?
Okay, yeah, definitely. Let's start with fat loss then. The common things that I think people can make with when they're wanting to lose body fat. I think the biggest thing for nutrition, from my opinion, is that they often think that when starting a nutrition plan or going into anything to do with a meal plan, nutrition, is that they need an overhaul, or there needs to be this drastic change, and they need to invest all of this time and energy. And actually, small changes that make a big effect are what we want to focus on. And often I think people can be a little bit hard on themselves, that their diet isn't normally that bad. It's just that they don't maybe understand what's potentially causing them to not reach their goal. So for example, like fat loss I don't think main meals are usually an issue. I think people are relatively consistent for maybe during the week, and then it's maybe like the odd weekend or the odd night out, or it's maybe liquid calories or something like this that they don't necessarily account for. So I always use this example with one of my clients who was like, I'm not losing weight and I'm doing, everything that you say, I'm following the plan, I'm eating in the meals. And it was simply because he was consuming around 320 calories from like teas, coffees, little extra oils when he was cooking, and like liquid calories, like liquid nutrition. So 300 calories a day, but you don't notice it, like a couple of flat whites or one latte or a couple of sugars in your tea, or do you know what I mean? Like these little things, unfortunately, people they add up. So it's a little bit depressing, but all we did was we just cleaned up a couple of those areas, and then boom, like there was a huge change. So rather than him having to learn loads of new recipes or whatever, it was just a very small change that made a relatively big effect. And I think that's a very common thing that I see with people. It's that you just need to identify what small changes that you can make. And liquid calories is one of them. Maybe not eating enough protein, enough vegetables at certain meals, especially maybe kind of breakfast, and maybe vegetables and protein at lunch, because then that has a knock-on effect to maybe like cravings and overeating in the evenings. So these simple strategies is what we try to teach and educate people to do in their in their daily setup.
One of the things that really resonated with me when I started looking into nutrition was I had always approached it on a day as a daily count of calories. And one thing that changed it was actually, no, it's not a daily count of calories. Why don't you think about your calorie kind of deficit surplus in terms of a whole week and see where you're going wrong? I imagine you must see that all the time.
Yeah, like really great point there. Again, your body doesn't know 24 hours. So like, you got 1800 calories on that day. It doesn't automatically reset, at 12:01 on a Tuesday. So you do need to take that bird's eye view. You need to come away from things and look at your overall week, maybe your overall 2 weeks, an overall month, as to be like, okay, well, what's potentially, what's making me kind of feel good and helping me to get towards my goal, and what's maybe potentially, putting a bit of a bump in that road. So look, weekends are a huge thing for people. Like, you know, and I'm not saying that you need to be, you know, an absolute monk and not go out and enjoy yourself or whatever. But like you say, if your weekend is causing so many issues that you're not, you know, or taking you over your, you know, your calorie intake, then maybe, like you say, you need to put in some strategies to be able to achieve that, like to achieve a calorie deficit, say, across the week, rather than just focusing on the day. So take that bird's eye view is a really good thing. Tracking, you know, your weekly calories, but it also comes down to weight as well. So people think that, you know, if they're trying to lose fat loss, if we're talking about that, if they're trying to lose weight, like tracking it once a week or once every 2 weeks, for me, is just maybe, you know, something that they need to kind of track a little bit more. And I know people, there's lots of psychological issues about weighing yourself, but you've got to take an average of your weight because it can fluctuate so much. And often people can be hard on themselves that are not making progress because for whatever reason that day that their weight hasn't, you know, has fluctuated up. So if you take like you know, like the calorie average across the week, if you take a weight average across the week, you can often then start to see trends and see actually you are making progress and that your weight is trending down rather than just a one-day snapshot.
So on that, when a client approaches you and says they want to take a critical look at their nutrition and overhaul what they're doing because whatever they're doing is not working, how do you initially approach that?
So the initial assessment would be to kind of look at their current setup. Okay, so rather than being like, right, you've got to then fit a plan. Like we don't necessarily follow a specific diet. Like we want to take their current nutrition setup, their training setup, their food choices, and like I say, make small tweaks, like that clinical nutrition analysis of having someone look at you and be like, well, if we just made like 1 or 2 small changes here, you know, maybe looked at tidying a few things up, simplifying the whole process, because what you're currently doing is an easier change. If you're, you know, you're making a certain couple of recipes, let's look at those and adjust them rather than overhauling and trying to kind of fit you to a specific diet. So the first thing is kind of looking at their current setup, making small changes, and then, you know, and it's definitely about setting some achievable goals. Like a lot of people come to us and maybe have unrealistic expectations to be like, oh, I want to lose 10 kilos in, you know, 2.5 days or whatever it is, and I want to gain muscle in
Yes,
that time as
please.
well.
I'll have one of
Yeah.
those.
So I'm like, well, okay, well, let's manage expectations and like you say, put a structured plan in place to be able to achieve that. Now, everything for us is about performance. Now, talking about performance, like lifting more weight, yes, that's definitely an aspect of it, but it's not just, you know, I can make anyone lose weight, but you want to perform well. We want to have, you know, energy levels, you know, through the roof across the day. We want to be able to sleep better. We want to be an actual, you know, nice person to be around rather than this grumpy person that just kind of, you know, gets through. And yes, they lost 5 kilos, but you know, their mood is so bad that no one wants to be around them. So performance is a big kind of overall aspect of what we try to do. So, you know, we definitely take that into consideration as well. So definitely everything that we do is personalized in terms of food choices, calories, macros. If you want to go down that level, food, you know, whether you're vegan, whether you're whatever you want to be, we can help you to like you say, just navigate it and get something that's individualized and it's going to be it's actually going to be able to be followed rather than this really kind of like restrictive, you know, way of eating.
So if I'm a person and I want to put muscle on, what are the common things that I've been doing wrong and why isn't it working?
So you've been trying to put muscle on
No,
and
I
you can't
haven't,
do
but
it.
what if I was?
Okay, yeah,
I've
okay.
got too much of it. I just need to lose
Who
fat.
loves muscle? Said no one
It
ever.
needs to get stronger, but it's already there.
Okay, good. Right. So if you're someone that is trying to get stronger and maybe is like say hit a plateau or can't just seem to break through and actually gain a little bit of muscle. Look, there's some common things like I don't really think that there's a thing called like hard gainer. For me, it just doesn't exist. Like yes, certain people have genetic setup that makes it a little bit more challenging, but usually the people that say that they can't put on muscle, they're either first thing first is to gain muscle, actual muscle rather than strength, like to get bigger and stronger. The training stimulus is much more important than nutrition. You know, like I can get the best strength-based nutrition plan in place. But if you're walking on the treadmill and you're doing a couple of tricep kickbacks in the gym, you ain't getting stronger. So the stimulus of training is much more important than nutrition if you want to gain muscle. Once you have that, then you can start to kind of put in a nutrition plan. Now, overall calories matter, protein matters, distribution of protein matters. So, you know, you need to make sure that you have these foundations. And often people make the mistakes of not training in the right way, training too much, like doing too many extras, like doing too many WODs or too many 5K runs, or, you know what I mean? Like, oh, I just do it, you know, a few burpees and stuff like that, rather than, well, that's all costing you calories and costing you energy that you're not then eating enough to replenish and to give your body the raw materials to build. Okay, so a common thing is like not, you know, doing the right training, not eating enough consistently. Like, gaining muscle is tough. Like, it's harder than losing fat, in my opinion. Like, it's a long process, and you've got to be very consistent, and you've got to really commit to it. So, you know, a lot of people don't commit to it for long enough, or they commit to it for a very short period of time, and then they get scared. They're putting on a little bit of weight or a little bit of body fat, and then all of a sudden they drop the calories and they want to lean back out again. And you never kind of get to that point where you actually build muscle. So there's some really, really common things that we see, and it's hard. Like, I'm not saying it's easy. Like, a psychological aspect of gaining muscle is quite challenging, because you do have to maybe put aside that you are going to maybe put on a bit of weight, and your body's going to change. And it's especially, I think, more so for females, but even males, like, it's a really hard thing to do. Like, and then we often see people get then caught in this like gray zone of just like not really doing anything. They're not really getting, you know, leaner. They're not really putting on muscle. So yeah, they kind of get caught in this like weird gray zone, which I'm probably the king of the gray zone. So I kind of hovered around there for a number of years.
What advice do you give yourself then? What advice do you give those guys?
Decide
what you want to do.
Yeah, it is. It's identifying your primary goal, 100%. Like, you know, lean gains, like changing your body, like gaining muscle and losing fat. Like, look, it's possible, but when you have a more of a kind of higher training age, and maybe you're, you know, a little bit leaner, it becomes a little bit harder to do. So for me, I would be like, Liam, you need to pick a primary goal. So, you know, it is very hard. And for me, it was just, I didn't follow something structured. I didn't follow the structured plan with progressive overload. From a strength point of view, I just love jumping into classes and just throwing down with different members at different gyms. So, you know, for me, as long as I didn't beat myself up that I wasn't getting stronger and putting on muscle, and I was just enjoying fitness, then that's totally cool, you know. So, but if you really want to kind of say like put more weight on the bar and get a little bit stronger and put a bit of muscle on, then yeah, you probably need to identify, you know, and really hone in at having something structured from a training point of view, and then get your nutrition on point.
So, something that we hear all the time: in versus out, and being in a deficit. How true is that, and how much does that apply to what you're trying to coach people?
Look, it's very true. It's science, it's physiology. Like, to lose body fat or to lose weight, you need to be in a deficit in some way. Now, yeah, you can create that by eating a little bit less, so reducing the amount that you put in, or you can do it by increasing the amount that you expend. And
is there a cap on either of those sides?
Well, yeah, there kind of is. Like, there's only so much exercise that you can do. There's only, you know, your body needs to function at a level. Like, you've got your resting metabolic rate. So if you need a certain amount of food to survive. So if you just, you know, keep reducing, like, you're not going to keep losing weight. Like, you know, your body has these mechanisms, these protective mechanisms to stop that happening. So there is, you know, you want to create a deficit that's large enough to be sustainable, but it's not going to impact, you know, too much of your, you know, other areas such as your sleep, such as your performance, such as your mood. So look, there isn't a set thing. There isn't like, right, this is the golden number. There's different levels, and it's about identifying like what you're doing. Like I say, it's that personalization that you need to do. But for a lot of people, calories in, calories out, it's very hard. Like, it's very easy for people to say like, "Oh, just get into calorie deficit." Like, it's a very gross simplification of, of that, because we kind of spoke a little bit before, just to be like, well, what happens if life gets in the way? Kids, shift work, training sessions. I was really, really hard today and I'm super hungry. Like, it's very easy to say, oh, just don't eat. Just you need to be in a deficit. Like, what you need to do is find something that's simple and achievable for clients. And there's certain strategies that you can do to be able to achieve that. Now, a lot of the thing that I do is maybe getting people to focus on eating a little bit more of the right stuff. So eating a little bit more volume foods if they're trying to lose a bit of body fat. So a bit more vegetables, a little bit more protein, a little bit more kind of like voluminous carbohydrates. So instead of having breads and rice, I'm not saying that people shouldn't have these, but potatoes could be something, because they're a little bit more volume. They take a little bit longer to eat. And if you pair them with loads of big voluminous vegetables and good protein, then you feel fuller. So then you want to eat less. Like, you almost got to trick your body to be able to manage this. Now, meal distribution, meal structure, if anybody's worked with me to listen to this, they know I have a home meal structure. Like, if you have an inconsistent structure, whatever it is, it just caught like the body love structure. If you have this inconsistent pattern of eating, for me, it becomes really challenging to be consistent with your diet. So we like to hone in that people eat at a regular time, for breakfast, for lunch, for snacks, for dinner, and get this consistency, because once you get this consistent pattern of eating, it allows you to be aware of what's working and what's not. So if I said to you, Lauren, right, I want you to eat 3 meals and 1 snack today, and you're like, what, 1 snack? I can only eat 1 snack. But we might go, okay, you're super hungry after lunch. Okay, so we need to maybe make an adjustment to that meal. Whereas if everything is random, some days you eat lunch at 12 o'clock, some days you eat it at 2:30, some days you miss it because you're in a meeting, some days you grab a protein bar. All of a sudden, and I will like, well, how you felt this week? And you're like, well, I felt good on that day, but I felt horrendous that day, and then I felt good on this day. So it becomes very hard then to put an actual plan in place, because everything's random. Like, if people can take something home, get a consistent meal structure in place, it allows you to be aware of what works, what doesn't, how you feel going into training. Do you need to adjust certain meals based on, like, say, that feedback? The problem is we're bloody terrible at being aware of what works and what doesn't. So that's why maybe you need a coach.
I think I would literally be your worst client in the world. That's what I'm learning from this.
we like I say, a massive principle of what I do is simplification. Like, but sometimes it takes someone to look at it. It's very easy for me to say, I'll just do that. It takes someone to, like, say, just maybe go like, right, this is what you want to do, 1 or 2 things, focus points, and then consistency is so crucial. That comes down to training, nutrition, anything that you do. Like, if you're inconsistent with it, learning a language, if you only learn language like 1 day a week, you do like an hour 1 week and then you do 3 hours the next week, like, you're not going to learn. If you do structured and you learn it and you practice it, all of a sudden it becomes a little bit more easier. And that's the same thing goes with nutrition.
Okay, so you are not oblivious to everything that's happening around us at the moment. Gyms have closed. People are probably training at home. There's going to be a lot of dumbbells and a lot of running. Hopefully in 2 weeks-ish time, we can get back into the gyms.
Fingers crossed. Come on, boys.
Fingers crossed. But of course, with that is going to come a load more barbell work. We're going to go heavier. We're probably going to up our intensity a load. How should we be approaching our nutrition in that transitional period?
Yeah, like, first things first, listen to your coaches. Okay, when you go into the gym, listen to your coaches. Like, they would have structured and planned in. The training side of things. Don't just go in and be thinking like, right, max out my clean, max out my snatch, do all the back squats,
PRs for everyone.
whatever you want to do, like just follow the programming. That's the number one thing I would say. But from a nutrition point of view, this is where I would say people need to, if you're regardless of your goal, I think you need to eat a little bit more. Okay. Now, that's a bit general, but what we need to do is fuel for function. Okay, we're going to be increasing intensity, maybe increasing like the amount of volume that we're doing, the increasing weight. We need to supply the body with a little bit of support, a little bit of raw materials, a little bit of extra energy, because what we're doing is going to be a little bit of a step up. So let's be proactive with that and put in a little bit more, maybe so if we go back in on the second or the third, maybe think about like maybe the 31st or the 30th, and then the 1st of December, to be just slightly increasing your intake so that you have a little bit of fuel in the tank ready for the first couple of days. And then I would say focus on nutrient timing. Now, people will talk about the anabolic window and they'll be like, it doesn't matter. It exists, okay? And workout nutrition is important, I think, when we're first going back into the gym and returning to a new stimulus, a new, well, we know it, but it's a new stimulus from what we've been doing in the last 4 weeks. If we focus on eating a little bit more pre-workout and a little bit more post-workout, so actually taking advantage of that window, it's just going to help with lowering muscle soreness, reducing stress levels, helping to provide some support for your body to repair and regenerate, rather than being like, if you miss that workout window, okay, if your overall intake over the day is still adequate, then that's cool. But we're thinking about what can we do to really maximize your recovery and performance. And I think that people should be taking a little look at their workout nutrition and maybe just honing in on that. That would be my kind of top tip. Eat a little bit more in the couple of days preceding it, and then making sure that you're focusing on your workout nutrition, and avoid that load spike. Follow the coaching program. Don't do loads of extras. We don't want to go back in and do the first session and then we're back to home workouts because we can't walk up the stairs for 4 days. So let's just ease into it and avoid that spike.
When you're talking about eating more, we haven't really spoken about macros at all. We go into it a bit more in a minute, but like, are we talking eating more carbohydrate to fuel? Are we talking about eating more protein? Are we trying to just raise our calorie intake? What's the thought process?
That's a good question. I would say for most people, they just need to increase their overall calories. Okay, like depending on what diet you're following, you might be following a low carb, higher fat diet. Then me saying just chucking carbohydrates isn't really going to work. Like, you want to maybe increase whatever you're taking, just increase the overall calories, like I say, just to provide your body with a little bit more support. Now, if you're going to be doing more CrossFit, more, that side of things, then yes, predominantly more carbohydrates would be a sensible thing, and it would definitely be an addition that I would include around your workouts. So in the days preceding, maybe just bump your calories up, but then in the workout nutrition, I would definitely say like carbs are your mates. They're your friends. So it's going to help you to fuel that session, help you to really get the most out of the first couple of sessions rather than just kind of getting through them. And it's going to help you to repair and regenerate, so you can go back, hopefully, day after day for the first few days. So that would be my advice.
And then let's go straight to the macros thing. How much emphasis do you place on macros, macro counting, and that way of managing your nutrition?
So, cool. Lois, a big question here. You got.
Sorry, I leave it wide open.
No, it's good. It's good. Calories and macros they're important. Okay, calories are king. Like, if you want to change your body composition, you want to lose weight, gain muscle, whatever it is, like, you need to have an understanding of energy balance. Okay. Now, whether you do this through tracking or whether you do this through portion control or whatever, hands, plate sizes, whatever it is, you need to have an awareness. Now, for me, cultivating the skill, understanding what foods contribute to what calories, the amounts, like the energy density, the macro distribution in certain foods and the certain meals that you're eating, I think is a really good skill for a lot of people to learn. Because once you either track for a few weeks or a few days, or simply put the current meals that you're eating into MyFitnessPal and have an understanding of that's how much it is, then you earn the right to intuitively eat, to maybe kind of eyeball stuff. But we're terrible at eyeballing. If you haven't tracked before and have an understanding of calories and macros, then you might not just be able to kind of, like say, you haven't earned the right, for me. So we do place an emphasis on calories and macros, and because it makes a difference. Like that, they do help people to understand what is needed, what is required to change their body composition, to fuel their performance, and to make them feel good, and what works for them. Now, like for us, like the way we set it up is not extremes. Like we have kind of a relatively simple kind of setup at the start, and what we call building your baseline. So rather than being like high carb, low fat, whatever it is, we keep protein relatively consistent regardless. And then we encourage you to be like, right, focus on calories and protein at the start. Okay, so anybody that hasn't tracked calories or macros, don't worry about trying to get carbs and fats like nailed down. Get your calories and get your protein hit on a daily basis. Okay, carbs and fats can kind of fluctuate however you want. Once you've got that nailed down, then you can start to focus on carbohydrates and fats, in my opinion, and really start to align that to the type of training, your personal preference. But what you need to focus on the calories and the protein, because those two are crucial regardless of your goal. So for anyone that hasn't done that, try to kind of focus on those two key steps at the start. Look, if anyone doesn't know how to do it, we have a free macronutrient calculator on our site. Just go over under resources, gives you calories, macros. You can adjust it depending on your goal, on what your type of training, whether you're vegan, plant-based, whatever it is you want to do. Gives you your calories, macros, meal breakdowns, so you can, let's say, work on meal structure and see that kind of nice distribution across the day.
Amazing. I know what I'm checking out later. So the other side, in my kind of personal kind of fight with my nutrition on a daily basis, it's so much of a mental game as well. And I mean, we've spoken loads about structuring. I think that's a big part, but how do you coach people through those kind of like internal battles that they have with themselves all the time when it comes to food? And there's so many, isn't there? You could be eating too much food, you're not eating enough food, you are trying to get some sort of consistency. Like, again, massive question.
Yeah, it's huge. But like food and nutrition, it's an emotional thing, isn't it? So we can have like it to be emotional. We're attached to certain meals, certain times, or we don't want to be thinking that, like, I always use the excuse, like the example of people going to a barbecue. We don't want to be that person that turns up with Tupperware to a barbecue, because it's like you got to live. Yeah. So the psychological aspect of managing it is so hard. Look, for me, sometimes I'm a foodie. I love food. I could talk about it all day long. But some people aren't. And I think that if you're trying to really hone your nutrition in and change your weight, your whatever, fuel your performance, sometimes you have to take the emotion out of food. So some meals need to just be that. They need to be a meal that helps you to achieve your goal, rather than this like gourmet 5-star amazing tasting like all these different things and spices and ingredients. Like, sometimes it needs to be functional. Okay, so for me, my breakfast and my lunch for 5 to 6 days a week is what I would call functional. Okay, I have a training day breakfast. I have a breakfast that if I don't train in the morning, I have, and I don't really change that. Same with my lunch. I keep my lunch pretty consistent most days, and then every 2 to 3 to 4 weeks I'll vary it, and then I'll just eat that again, because I'm just like, I don't want that decision stress of having to make a new recipe, new thing every single meal. And my dinner, when we sit down, well, we don't really sit down with a little one now. We kind of eat as and when. But when we sit down together, that's something that's a bit of variety. I can, be present, enjoy that meal, and take a bit of time. But
are you the cook in your household?
I am, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's something that I think a lot of people kind of miss, and they think that every single meal needs to be this like amazing gourmet meal. And if they can just like simplify, and what we teach clients to have a couple of go-to meals. So get your go-to meals and then make a couple of variations and note them down. So for example, you could have an overnight oats and a yogurt bowl for breakfast. Okay. Like they're your two options. You can have change the fruit in the oats. You can change the flavor of milk, or you can do whatever, like there's your variations, but the base meal, the base recipe is the same. You eat that, you crack on with your day because it makes you feel good. You've got the right amounts, rather than thinking every morning like, what am I going to have to eat? And then you're looking in the fridge and then you're thinking, oh, should I have eggs? Should I have a bagel? Should I have bacon? I haven't got any. Simplify it and remove the emotion of it at certain times. And that's going to help you to kind of be a bit more structured, a bit more kind of on plan. And then, you don't need to be on plan 100% of the time. Identify times when you relax it a little bit, and identify times where you maybe change you deviate from the plan, but still focus on the principles of maybe food quality and, portion control. But don't beat yourself that you need to be 100% on plan. You don't need to be on 100% on plan to make progress.
What's the percentage that you need to be
on
plan?
You can be 80% on, 20% off. You could be 90% on, 10% off. But if your 20% or your 10% off is so bad that it negates the 80 and 90%, then that's when you need to be 100% on. But if you can manage it, like, the 80-20 rule doesn't work if your 20% is like, 10 pints, 2 pizzas, and then, a leftover kebab the next day. That's going to impact your fat loss goal, because you're just going to blow your calories across the week. Like we said, that bird's eye view. So you've got to make sure that 20% is still restrained. It's just not rigid. So principles to focus on are still focus on food quality, still focus on portion control, but maybe just a slight extra. It needs to be a cheat meal, not a cheat day. These types of principles that you can kind of follow that will still allow you to have that, relax the reins a little bit, but still make progress.
And we have Christmas coming up. When we think about food and we think about Christmas, they are kind of one and the same, and alcohol. So how can people approach this season and feel good about what they're doing without completely, ruining their social life?
Yeah, I mean, we're in lockdown. We've got time now. Let's not waste this, getting credit for Christmas. You might want to just drop your calories now a little bit and just feel like you're going to lean out a little bit or increase your output to, like say, getting credit for Christmas. And when we go into the festive period, for me, it maybe goes down to just relaxing that kind of to maybe 70% on, or 60% on. But you've got to manage your excess. Okay. If you are this person that just can't, you just so gluttonous and just constantly going back for thirds and fourths in dessert or main meals, and just binge drinking because it's Christmas, or using the excuse, oh, it's just Christmas so I can get away with what I want, and just chowing down a whole box of after eights at 4:00 in the afternoon.
Sounds wonderful.
Yeah, it sounds lovely, but you have to deal with the consequences.
Yeah.
Managing your excess, usually that's the only bit of advice. I'm not telling people to not drink or not eat or not, indulge in certain times, but do you need to indulge at every single meal that day? Maybe not. If we're going around the friend's house, do you need to be right, well, I'm going to have croissants and eggs and a 3-course breakfast, and then I go out and I'll have I'll take some chocolates every time I walk past the kitchen, and then you go out and the afternoon drinking or whatever it is. If you're going out, if you've got a meal out, if you're going to see some friends, then manage your excess around that. Make sure that your breakfast is on point. Make sure that you have healthier food in the house the next day after you go out on the drink, so that then you're not tempted to be I'm going to eat that frozen pizza or leftover pizza or whatever, or Deliveroo's on the phone 3 times a day. It's about managing your excess, guys, and that's the only thing I'm going to say, because I'm not going to tell people not to drink. I'm going to drink, but like you say, I'm not going to do it maybe 3, 4, 5 days in a row. I'm going to make sure that I manage it so that, yeah, I might put on a little bit of weight or do whatever, but I'm not going to be like, I'm not going to just end up having to start from, I'm not going to regress so much because I've used this like next couple of weeks to get in credit. I'm still going to hopefully train or do some form of movement through the Christmas period, which helps you just, like I say, that manage that balance. And then, yeah, not feel guilty because, I'd rather have the memories than thinking about, oh, I sat there and ate my, broccoli stir fry than everyone else was tucking into sticky toffee pudding. Not that there would be two options in a meal anyway, but my yogurt bowl and then they're having their sticky toffee pudding. But yeah, manage your excess, guys. Like I say, just try to identify some strategies to be like, make sure that you've got stuff around you that's still going to be healthier, especially when you're on a hangover or let's say times when you haven't got people, when you haven't got people round or we're not socializing and it's maybe just you, they're the times to kind of maybe just dial things in.
And I think you pretty much kind of covered it a bit in that answer, but is there, when you have gone big, is there ways that you can mitigate the impact it will have on your training by how you eat following experiences of fun?
So like there's not really anything that you can do. No, like I would just say that you need to identify times where you're really on your training and you're pushing forward, and then there's times when you can just like relax and have a life. And if you're trying to do everything all at once, like you're trying to be all in all the time, you're just not going to get the best. You're not going to enjoy the night out because you're thinking, oh, I've got to go and train the next day, or you're not going to enjoy that training session because you're still half cut. Like, so I would just be like, nah, there's nothing you can do. I mean, stay hydrated, definitely. Like that's one thing that we are often very guilty of, especially in the winter, especially when we're out drinking.
How much should we be drinking?
Sorry?
How much should we be drinking?
How much should we drink? Oh,
no, as in water.
Oh, I thought you meant alcohol.
No. Alcohol is obviously clearly to the person.
How much should we be drinking?
Imagine.
Yeah, I know. I was just like, whoa. But yeah, for me, in terms of hydration, often we overlook it in winter because we're maybe not sweating as much, and we don't necessarily think we need it. If you can get to 2.5 to 3 liters of water a day, we see it's a really big effect on people's performance, recovery, hunger, managing hunger levels a little bit more, because sometimes dehydration can mask as hunger. So aiming for that 2.5, 3 liters is a really good thing of water. Now, yes, obviously, if you're drinking teas and potentially other drinks, then it can contribute to hydration levels, but solely kind of pure water would be, that's a really good aim, a good target to aim for.
There is, I'm going to work this out really quickly, about 3 months, ignoring Christmas, between now and the Open, approx.
Yeah.
So say you hadn't really been doing a whole lot with your nutrition up until this point, what would be the key things to implement that so that you might see positive gains come Open time?
The number one thing I say to people is like, if you're going to do the Open, what is going to make the biggest difference to your Open performance? Okay, so if you've done the Open before, where did you fall down? Okay, so for example, myself, strength. Okay, I'm good at gymnastics. I'm relatively okay with the engine side of things. So I would be like, I need to get a little bit stronger. So for me, my nutrition, my training, it needs to be aligned. I'm not going to sandbag all of my like aerobic stuff or CrossFit stuff and just do strength. But my primary area of focus needs to be getting stronger. So I need to set my training and nutrition up over the next 3 months to get a bit stronger. So then I hit the Open knowing that I've kind of done the stuff that's going to make the biggest difference. Similar to other people that if maybe kind of gymnastics or pull-ups or handstand push-ups or whatever was their issue, box jumps, then maybe they need to look at going, okay, well, if I dropped 2, 3, 4, 5 kilos, then actually all of those handstand push-ups, maybe I could get a few more pull-ups, rather than being like, oh, I just need to focus on barbell cycling or getting stronger. Whereas, if it's a toes to bar and muscle up and snatch workout, if you ain't got toes to bar and think is you're carrying a bit too much weight, You ain't going to get to the snatch. So it doesn't matter. So like, what's the point in working on that? You might as well work on losing a bit of weight and working on your gymnastics, because that's going to make the biggest difference. So as soon as you identify like what kind of your primary goal is, then you can align your nutrition to that. So it could be losing a bit of body fat. It could be maybe gaining a bit of muscle, or getting a bit stronger, or improving your aerobic capacity. And then you can kind of set things up to say work on your primary goal, and then hopefully you're going to work your way up the leaderboard and enjoy the open a little bit more.
You just mentioned one there, but we'll move on to just kind of quick fire myth busting. But losing body fat means losing strength.
No, don't be silly. No. Yeah, you can still get stronger in a deficit, 100%. There's so many different factors that contribute to strength. So, you can build muscle in a deficit as well. Like, but that's probably another whole podcast. But getting stronger, like you can still get stronger in a deficit. Like we do this all the time with people. Like you manipulate your meal structure, maybe eat a little bit more going into workouts. You can still hit PBs because you got a bit more energy. And strength comes from so many different factors. It comes from technique, it comes from mobility, it comes from like, you can still get stronger without getting bigger, So just because you got a slight energy deficit, as long as you're sensible about where you create that energy deficit, then you can still get stronger, 100%.
Eating Eating carbohydrates after 6 p.m. It's going to make me put on weight.
No. Overall, look at the bird's eye view. Overall thing. Now, often this is a myth because people say, well, I'm not doing anything after 6 p.m. or energy output is a little bit less. So that means that everything I eat, after 6 p.m. is going to be stored as body fat. It doesn't really work like that. Again, like the body is in a constant state of flux. Like, so if you've trained that day, if you're maybe training at evening, or you're going to train the next day, like it's not going to be stored as body fat. It might be stored as muscle glycogen, liver glycogen. It's a really big myth. Like you've got to look at your overall intake. That's the biggest thing that puts on body fat, not eating a certain macronutrient after 6 p.m.
Breakfast is the most important meal of the day.
No, it's a myth, kind of, if that's a myth or not, but no, it's not the most important. It's not the most important myth of the day. You can intermittent fast. That is totally cool if you want to do that. So then you don't eat breakfast. So then maybe, the lunch becomes an important meal. Your dinner's an important meal. Like there isn't necessarily one most important meal. Like you've got to be looking at your overall intake, guys. And, if you really nail one meal, that's cool. But if the rest of them are terrible, then it doesn't matter how good that meal is, then, it's you're not going to make progress. So no, breakfast isn't the most important.
Personal favorite, carbs are bad for you.
Oh, no, they're not. I mean, I think when I used to work in football, so was in football for 13 years, and I came out into the CrossFit world, rode the CrossFit wave a little bit for the last 5-6 years. And I think when back in the day, CrossFit, the carbs and CrossFit didn't really go together. Everyone was paleo, and we kind of did a little bit of keto and stuff like that. And I genuinely
bring back 2013. I remember that. That's what I was taught when I started. Like, paleo.
Yeah, just do paleo. But paleo, you can still eat sweet potato and all these other vegetables that have carbohydrates, but no one did. So, everyone just went low carb, which is, you can do that low carb paleo. But I think there's been a big shift, especially in the last maybe 18 months, that people are starting to understand that actually, eating carbohydrates is required for optimal performance when you're doing this type of exercise. And for anything that's high intensity or a lot of volume or a lot of or intensity, then you need carbohydrates. Like, so carbs aren't bad for you. And even like the bad ones, like sugars and sweets and whatever like that, then they're not necessarily bad for you. They're probably bad for you if you eat them in excess. Just be very wary of labeling foods bad or good. it's not really a healthy way to approach it. So no, carbs aren't bad. Get them in you. They're your friend, especially if you're trying to perform well.
Fresh food versus frozen.
Oh, this is a good one actually. No, fresh food is not superior to frozen. No. Yeah, obviously there is some nuance to that. Like, but frozen food is really good. Like, you know, it's especially like stuff like frozen berries, frozen vegetables. You know, they hold nutrients. They're absolutely fine to use. And often people go, well, if I can't get fresh, I'd rather people eat frozen food that's maybe a slightly, you know, less nutrient dense than not eat it at all. You're going to get some nutrients out of this, whether it's fiber, whether it's some micronutrients. I'd rather you be eating this than not eating it at all. I watched some program, like one of these ones on BBC, like Food Unwrapped or something like this, a while back, and they spoke about fresh fish and frozen fish. And because frozen fish is like boom, like done straight off like the boat or wherever it is, actually like the kind of taste and the nutrient density was a lot better than fresh fish. That fresh, it's actually been sitting on certain things for like 3, 4, 5, 6 days. So yeah, absolutely fine. I think also frozen food is a really great thing to use for a lot of people in terms of meal prep, in terms of keeping their nutrition on point, maybe during the week when you don't have access to, like, you know, you don't want to go to the shops like 3 times a week. So getting a big bag of frozen veg, some frozen berries, you know, maybe some frozen meals, you know, some frozen like mince or corn or whatever it is, and then using this through the week to maybe supplement meals, you know, bulk meals out or make small additions. But I think it's a really great thing, guys. So definitely use a bit of frozen.
You've already touched on this, but eating food in designated times in the day.
Yeah, I think that when you have this consistent structure, it does allow you to just be aware of what works and what doesn't. I just think that you don't need to be like super rigid now. You miss like, you know, 8 p.m., 8 a.m. or I can't eat, like I can only eat my dinner from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. or whatever it is. Like, be a little bit more fluid with it. But I do believe that when you get a consistent structure in place, it makes a big difference. Now, I'm not saying that people need to eat 3 meals a day or 5 meals a day or whatever. When I say find something that works for you. So if you want to fast, then cool, eat lunch, snack, dinner. That's your meal structure. Get that in place, be consistent with it, and then identify what works and what doesn't, and then make small tweaks to that. If you want to eat 5 times a day, do that, but then be aware that, does that mid-morning snack work? Does that lunch work for you? Like, for me, that's what people can you know, do to make a big difference to their meal plan.
Less of a myth, more of just a word. Caffeine.
Love it.
I don't think there's a myth around caffeine, but I feel we should talk about it.
You know, for me at the moment, the word is needed. So
yeah, new baby, understood.
Look, caffeine's great. It's possibly the most proven ergogenic aid and you know, supplement that you can use. So it's been proven to improve. It's proven to improve your like, you know, power output, aerobic capacity, you know, time to fatigue, you know, and it can help if you're sleep deprived in the short term. It can help to, you know, offset that. So yeah, caffeine is definitely something that you can use to really improve your performance, mental performance, and yeah, you just got to be a little bit careful in terms of maybe taking it later on in the day. Like, we often say to clients, use it in the first 8 hours of your day. So if you use it in the first 8 hours, then stop after that. So whenever your day starts, use it in the first 8 hours.
I like that. There you go. I will implement that
yeah,
into my life.
Simple way to approach it, isn't it? So that's what we like to do, because then it has, you know, less impact on sleep, and just be very wary of being reliant on caffeine. Like, you know, if you need a pre-workout, if you need that boost all the time, then maybe looking at your overall intake, maybe you need to eat a little bit more rather than relying on caffeine. But if you're using it, like you say, it's something to help improve your performance, to help because you like what do you like the taste of it? And yeah, cool, totally good, totally fine to have it in. Just be very wary about being reliant on it.
This podcast could go on for another hour with questions I have around things like
Keep
that we're
coming.
talking about.
I've had my caffeine today, so keep coming at me.
Okay, fair enough. So, okay, metabolism. The impact of a personal metabolism versus people who turn around and go, oh, I've got really slow metabolism, that's why I'm heavier set.
Yeah. Okay. Right. How do I try and simplify this? Like, metabolism is an incredibly complex thing, and it constantly changes. Okay, so it's not like, oh, you've got a slow metabolism, you've got a fast metabolism. Like, things that you do, like training, can increase your metabolism. Like, sitting down for 2 days can reduce your metabolism. Like, not eating enough food can lower your metabolic rate. So, like dieting for extended periods of times, your body will adapt and change your metabolism because you're not giving it the fuel. So you don't just, you're not just born and then just given this ticket like, oh, Lauren, you have a slow metabolism. Like, that doesn't, it's not quite, it's not that simple. So it's a complex thing. And again, don't think that, like, genetics for me, I always use this phrase, genetics load the gun, environment pulls the trigger. So yes, some people are set up with slightly certain things that maybe kind of lower their metabolic rate. But again, the environment can change that. But you can also then, compound the stuff that you do. So metabolism is a constantly changing thing. Like, people that have fast metabolisms are, or classed as fast metabolisms, they often move a lot more, they often train a lot more, they're probably eating a little bit more, which makes them want to move a little bit more. So their metabolic rate is higher. They may be strength trained, they maybe do more, stuff. Whereas people with slow metabolisms, they might be constantly on a diet. They might not eat enough food, across the week, and then binge at certain times. And then in that binge, they just sit down all day, so then their metabolism is, it's affected. So it's a challenging thing. Like, yes, like you can go into, like, thyroid issues and other things, but for a lot of the time, I don't think people should be blaming their metabolism for their inability to reach the goals. Often it's just looking at their nutrition and training, and then making sure that that's on point, rather than just saying like, oh, I'm just chucking the towel because I've got slow metabolism. Same as like hard gainers, like, yeah, just people are a little bit lazy. I think that's maybe a little bit harsh, but yeah, it's a massive topic and it's very oversimplified. So don't also, like, people that are saying like, eat for metabolism, or there's like certain diets and stuff like that. Like, again, there's not a certain diet for it. Like, it's a very, very complex topic. So just be very wary if anyone's saying like you should be eating certain things for your metabolism. So yeah, maybe I can put people in the right direction in terms of helping them with their metabolism in the future. But it's a very complex topic. I haven't really answered that, Lauren, I don't think.
No, you did.
I think that was a terrible answer. I think I started quite well and then I went off on one.
It happens. It's fine. That's why podcasting's so great, because there's all this time to play with.
Yeah.
Last one, on the old myth front. I'm a vegan, therefore I don't get the correct nutrients to build muscle. I'm not vegan, but if I was.
Oh, I was going to say, no. Again, that's a myth. We did a talk at the Plant-Based Games recently, and one of my coaches, Tom McClure, has written a how to transition to a plant-based diet program on our hub. And look, we work with a number of plant-based clients, and it doesn't, just because you're plant-based or vegan, doesn't automatically qualify you to have these nutrient deficiencies. Just because you eat plant-based doesn't mean that I'm deficient in iron and B12 and omegas and vitamin D. Like, it doesn't work like that. Yes, you're at risk if you follow a vegan diet for an extended period of time of potentially having some deficiencies. But if you manage your nutrition correctly, you use fortified foods, you make sure that you get certain, foods that have these nutrients in, then you can absolutely manage your nutrition absolutely fine. So it doesn't automatically qualify you for that. And look, there's more supplementation at the moment as well, like some really good, supplementation. If you are worried about it, you can get at-home blood testing done, and we can help you to analyze that and stuff like that. And I did, I actually took Connor, who runs the Plant-Based Games. He's been plant-based or vegan for a number of years now. Took his blood work, and yeah, he's supplemented off and on for a while, but his blood work was one of the best I've ever done. There wasn't a single thing that he was deficient in. So, and he's been following the plant-based diet for about 5 years. So yeah, it doesn't work.
Amazing. Right. Closing off myth busting. If people have liked what they heard and think that they might be a good fit with, what you're talking about, where can they get hold of you and contact you and interact?
So best place to start is our website, phnutrition.co.uk. We have all of our programs on there. We have kind of 3 different levels. So we have like the PH Nutrition Hub, which is just £10 a month, but it hosts an unbelievable amount of content. You get customized nutrition plan, calories, macros, everything's calculated for you. Like, we've taken all of the decision stress away, like recipes calculated to your exact breakdowns, nutrition guides, recipe packs, everything. But we also have courses and programs, because we understand that not everything is about calories and macros. So we have stuff like recovery program and timing of training, plant-based diet, eating around your menstrual cycle, 4-week program, meal prep program, stuff like this. And then we have regular Q&As, etc. But that's all, £10 a month. Then we have our more personalized one-to-one coaching as well. So if you are looking for something that's, or working one-on-one with a coach, then we have that. So you can complete a little quiz just to figure out which one's best for you. And as we mentioned earlier, we have loads of free resources, calorie calculator, recipe site, and stuff like that. So go to the website, or Instagram is where we kind of put most stuff now. So yeah, give us a follow and watch me talk a load of rubbish in front of my whiteboard if you really want to delve into some more nutrition stuff. I often post a few videos trying to simplify nutrition. So yeah, reach out, drop us a message on either one, contact us on the website or on Instagram, and hopefully we put you in the right direction.
Fab stuff. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I guess I can call it a show. We did have some questions come in from people who interacted with our Instagram, and if you want to see that, make sure you head to Instagram stories. It will all be there, and you can see Liam talk a little bit more about everything we've been talking about. Yes. But answering specific questions. So yeah, thanks so much, and see you soon.